Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pixley for President. I am Jared Pixley, running for president in the 2028 presidential election. Please forgive the lighting today. It's overcast here, so I don't have any of the natural lighting. And I don't have the funds for a proper setup, so I'm just making do with what I can, or with what I have. So, in my book, Pixley for President, available on Amazon, and in previous videos, and in my monthly newsletter, which, if you want, you can sign up to receive that through my website, I have talked a lot about taxing the rich and funding the government agencies. But I have not gone into detail too deeply on those subjects, and I haven't talked about how the two work together. And since I've seen various posts about this online, I thought it was a good idea to discuss that in this video. So I have pointed out before that Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Tesla, even 3M, Yum Brands, Disney, and so on, pay $0 in tax almost every year. So in 2025, there was a list of 88 companies, which you should be seeing on the screen, that made over $108 billion in profit, but paid $0 in taxes. Now, Trump claims to be a billionaire, and the last tax returns we've seen from him showed he only paid $750 in federal income tax. Why should you and I pay more taxes than they do? Well, here's the fixes I have. First, I'm always saying that I will end Trump's tax cuts for the wealthy. What are those tax cuts? There's actually a couple, but in his one big beautiful bill, the top 10% save about $14,500 a year, and the top 1% save over $50,000 a year in taxes. That doesn't sound like much, but it amounts to $1 billion in tax cuts. Like I said, there's multiple taxes there. The Bush-era tax cuts, some of those have been extended, and others. By making the wealthy pay their proper tax rate of 37% for a single payer earning over $600,000 a year, or a married couple earning $750,000 a year, this would give the government an extra $400 billion in tax revenue to fund government programs that we, the people, actually need and want. Second, in my book, I talk about a tax law that lets people write off the loan payments for their yachts. The law was not written with yachts in mind, at least I don't think it was. It was for houseboats. But it's now being used for yachts. Also, billionaires can write off the value of their private jets after just 1 year. The entire value. Jets do not depreciate that fast. Just closing these loopholes could generate more than $1 billion a year in extra tax revenue. Then there's the interest carryover loophole. Now, this was actually a new one on me. I just recently came across another politician talking about it. And if you're a hedge fund manager or in a position where you get a certain percent of growth, like, okay, I just get $20,000 a year plus 5% off the profit. That amount is not taxed normally. Instead, it is taxed as a carried over interest at about, I want to say it was somewhere between 13 and 16%. Closing that tax loophole could let the government collect about another $10 billion in taxes. So, here's over $400 billion that we can actually get for the government. Now, the catch is, it's not just, we don't just want to have the money. We want the money to do something with it. What do I want to do with it? I want to fund the government and create jobs. Specifically, I want to fund the government, the parts of the government that help the people. So at the start of this term, Trump gutted the government and tried to close several agencies. Tens of thousands of government employees lost their jobs. That's what I want to fix. Let's start with the Department of Veteran Affairs. They run 170 medical centers and 1,193 outpatient sites. They are understaffed and undersupplied. I know people that use them. Some people drive hours to get to one. My brother is a veteran and he goes to one. He recently told me a horror story about the conditions of the one in Maryland that he goes to. Imagine going to a hospital and being told, sorry, we're all out of Band-Aids. In 2025, they requested a budget of $340 billion. Like I said, they run 170 medical centers and over 1,000 outpatient sites. As president, I would put that in the budget. Actually, I'd probably put a little bit more for inflation. This would let them keep their facilities stocked and hire proper staff so they can do their jobs and help our veterans. Next, the Department of Education. They spend most of their funds on grants, programs for low-income students and special needs students. This provides over 21 million students with free or reduced lunch. For most of my childhood, I got free or reduced lunch. It varied year to year. And for a lot of children, this is the one meal that they are guaranteed to get. Now, please explain to me why it is okay to kill students in another country, but it's not okay to feed the students in our own country. $270 billion goes to this. I'd like to see a little bit more going to education, as I think we need to improve our system. We have a quarter of the adults in this country that cannot read well enough to understand a shopping list. People need to become more literate and learn how to do their own research, including evaluating sources, instead of just believing something because it's posted on Facebook. That's how we got into the mess that we're in right now. On top of that, schools are becoming more dangerous. Just this month, a principal tackled a student before he could enact another school shooting. Teachers should deserve hazard pay. I would discuss with my advisors and cabinet about starting a grant program to help give our hardworking teachers raises. The United States Forest Service is one that I talked about in a recent video. They maintain about 193 million acres of forest. Trump just gutted them, and they are likely losing a third of their staff. Just raising their budget back to its $9.5 billion and letting them refill all those positions would create about 10,000 jobs. The Environmental Protection Agency is another $9.5 billion agency. Under Trump, aside from rolling back all sorts of environmental protections like the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act, they also had massive layoffs. Restoring this agency to its pre-Trump levels would create another 10,000 jobs or so. I also want to make a special mention of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're a small agency that makes sure the American people do not get scammed. They make sure that the interest on loans does not exceed the legal limit. They keep an eye on debt collection and consumer complaints. Before Doge gutted it, on their website, you could see they had numerous complaints about loan collections for Tesla vehicles. Then Doge tried to fire 90% of their staff. Courts stopped this mass layoff. Now, the CFPB costs a little over $730 million a year. not even $1 billion. And they have a staff of 1,700 people. How many of them are still there? I don't know. I can't find it. But that's another agency that I would fund and, rehire all those people. The Department of Energy under President Biden had a grant program for developing green energy. A company called SunZia was one of the recipients. They turned their grant into an $11 billion energy company, providing electricity to Arizona and Southern California. They employ hundreds of mechanics, engineers, and electricians. They have built 500 miles of transmission lines. Their 900 wind turbines were built in America. However, Trump canceled these grants and went to court to try to claw back some of them. I would bring back this program because it's investing in America. The Department of Agriculture had another grant program that I want to bring back. It was for schools to buy fresh food from local farms instead of the cheaper, less healthy, prepackaged food. A lot of farmers loved this because it gave them more business. And fresh tomatoes are usually better than canned tomatoes with all the added sugar and preservatives. There are some studies that show that students that eat healthier do better on tests. But I think we need further studies on that. Now, I could go agency by agency, but I think this is enough for you to get the picture. Between taxing the rich and trimming a little bit off of the Department of Defense's budget, we could pay for these agencies and programs. Doing that could create tens of thousands of new jobs and be a boost to our economy. Now, if this is the country you want, one where the rich pay their taxes, one where the government creates jobs and invests in the American economy, one that takes care of the farmers, the teachers, the nurses, then please support my campaign. Donate 10 or 20 or whatever dollars you can to my fund. I do not have any billionaires, any corporations, or any special interest sponsors. Now, all of my funding comes from average Americans like you. And that is who I will work for as president. You can find the donate link on my site. Also, please like, subscribe, share my videos. You can also subscribe to any of my social medias. They're all in the box below, along with a link to my book on Amazon. Thank you very much for joining me this week, and I will see you again next week.